Today I'm going to be reviewing the things that you learned in the videos, as well as applying those things to specifically how we're going to be using them. Now, if you learn other things, you're welcome to use the other ways. These are just some of the ways that I have found have been most useful in the past. So again, little review of what I did in the first video with the setup of Flash. First thing I have this set in is in classic view. So if you get comfortable and want to switch to a different type of view, you're welcome to it. Second, I like to have my library open and out. The library is right here, and if you want it to stay open, I can just drag it over. If you need to get to your different stages, here you can click on the little clapper icon and you can get to your different stages. One of the things that I did have you do before was to have your other panels open and have your scenes open and off to the side. So if you wanted to, you would need this window if you were adding a scene or duplicating a scene or deleting a scene, if you needed to do any of those things. I am also going to change the zoom view to fit window so that we can see everything going. So now that you're ready to start to actually put your animations together, you should always start with the audio. So that being said, with your different layers, you want to lock all of the layers that you are not working in, just to make sure that you don't put things into the wrong layers. Just like in GoAnimate, one thing can happen at a time as long as it's in different pieces. So same thing in Flash. So in the audio layer, I'm going to go into my library and go to my one sound. Now my one sound is 4 seconds. So this is going to dictate how long at minimum the scene needs to go for. We are at 12 frames per second, 4 seconds. You're going to need at least 48 frames. Always better to add a few in. So each one of these little boxes is one single frame, or 1/12 of a second. You'll notice that all of your layers have the white circles, which are empty frames, which means nothing actually exists in them. When you first put on audio, it's going to look like nothing exists in them, but I'll show you in a moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out, looking at my timeline, I'm going to go out to 50 frames, and I'm going to add regular frame. There is a difference between a regular frame and a keyframe. Regular frames just means whatever is in that layer will exist for that part of the timeline. No changes are happening. So with audio, you're not going to make any changes. There are two ways to add a frame. You can right click and choose Insert Frame, or you can click on F5 and it will populate the timeline with the frames. So now I'm going to take my sound and I'm going to drag it to my stage. I'm going to make sure that I'm in the beginning of my audio on the timeline and drag it to my stage. What you will notice is there is now a blue line, which is essentially your sound file in there. But you want to be careful. You'll notice that you can't really tell whether or not the sound continues. Why? Because you don't see the end of the audio. So I'm going to come out for a few more frames. I'm going to add a few more frames. Now the sound actually continued out until 51 frames, and I'm just adding in 4 extra frames. That's a very short piece of time, not going to be a big deal. If you don't check to make sure that your audio goes all the way out and you can see where it ends, you're going to have a problem with it bleeding over into the next scene. So this gives you the opportunity to make sure that the scene is exactly as long as it needs to be. You can make it longer and there not be any sound, or if you wanted to, you could put in another audio if you wanted to add in other audio as well besides your voice. So the second thing I'm going to put in is my background. Now, nothing happens in the background just exists. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to lock the audio, unlock the background. I'm going to come out here and I'm going to insert a frame, and then I'm going to go back to the beginning, and I'm going to find the background that I need, which is this one, and then drag it and drop it onto my stage. Now you can notice it's a little bit too small, so I'm going to use my transform tool and make it a little bit larger. Now the transform tool in Flash doesn't just drag on one side, it actually drags on both sides. So if you were dragging horizontal or vertical, it's going to widen it in both directions and then drop it accordingly. Alright, so we're good to go with that. Now I'm going to start to add some of my props. First prop I'm going to add, you can notice that I have a clock on here. Doesn't have the hands on it right now. So these are going to be my two props. So I'm going to go into taking a look at my different symbols. I have my hour hand. Need to make sure I'm in the right layer. I'm going to go in prop 1, and I'm going to double click and rename this hour hand. And remember, single word name. I'm going to click on my empty keyframe, and I am going to take my hour hand and move that into place. So right about there. Now I can do whatever I need to do with my transform tool. I can rotate it, so on and so forth. Now the hour hand's not going to do anything, so I'm going to do the same thing like I did with the background, and I'm going to come out here to the 55, making everything equal, and I'm going to add a frame. Now I just want you to notice the frame now turns gray, and empty keyframe or white circle turned into a black circle or a keyframe. Means a change happens. It means this exists, and now every one of these single frames copied that in exact same frame. Now I'm going to go up to my layer 6, and my layer 6 is going to be my minute hand. Unlock it, lock the hour hand, and click on that frame. Find my minute hand and bring that in. Now the minute hand is what I'm going to start to animate. So there's a couple of things that I'm going to change in a moment after I put in the rest of the things. So I'm not going to have this fill in with our frames, because we're going to be doing something different with that. I'm going to come down here to my character, and I'm going to put that in. Forgot to lock the minute and unlock the character, which is going to be a frog. That's going to go right there. And again, too, I'm going to be doing some animation with that, so I'm not putting in anything else. I'm going to stop here for now and make a separate video on putting in your text and starting to do your animation. So if you need to go back and review different sections, you don't have to wait through an